Hello, I'm Josh Powell, and thank you for watching Community Matters. We hope you'll continue to watch as we discuss issues facing our community and provide you with the resources and information needed to find solutions. Today we're talking to local authors who forged their own path to publishing. We're joined by Joey Powell, a Raleigh-based author and the owner and operator of Mad Axe Media. And full disclosure, I'm filling in for our host Bill LeMay this week, and I just happened to be filling in on the episode where we have my twin as a guest. So sorry if that's confusing. But Joey, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
So when you first started out with writing, were you kind of into the writing scene, either locally or nationally? Did you know a lot of authors around you, or did you kind of need to build a network to learn kind of the ins and outs of writing a novel?
So I really didn't know a lot of writers, especially in the community. So writers within the community, I'm thinking about, the RTP area, Raleigh, Durham, Wake Forest. There doesn't seem to be a huge genre presence. So I in particular, I enjoy genre movies. And when I say genre, I mean things that aren't specifically, drama. I'm thinking horror. So I specialize in horror, sci-fi, fantasy. I've been lucky enough since I started writing to meet people who do specialize in that within the community. But I started meeting a lot of people through Instagram as I started getting a lot more involved in social media. And I knew that when I started writing, I needed to develop a bit of a bigger community. And the best way to do that, I found, was just connecting with people online.
So what did you learn along the way with the different steps, writing your first novel, the different steps of taking it from brainstorming all the way to I guess you would say a final draft?
So my biggest piece of advice for people that want to write their first book is just to start writing it, because you can plan something to death, but if you don't actually put something on a page, it literally doesn't exist, right? So for me, it was a combination of that, just getting started, and then writing a very robust outline that had every single story beat within the story, but in a way where I could tweak it, so I knew what the big events were. And once I knew how I was going to end my story and how the midpoint was going to plan out, I found myself getting really excited about writing these big set pieces. And so for me, it was kind of a race to get to those really exciting scenes that I wanted to see play out on the page. You got to start writing it, but obviously there's an aspect of it to actually planning it out. For me in particular, I wrote the first chapter, and after I wrote the first chapter, I was like, oh, I think this could actually be kind of good. It was kind of like a writing exercise for me. Where does it go from there? And that's when I started filling out I call it the 26-step outline. So all the important beats of the story, they were right there. And once I knew how it was going to end, I was able to write everything in between.
And so authors, once they start, they have this goal of getting published. What did you learn just kind of sitting out inquiries, trying to figure out the traditional publishing process? What did you learn about that?
So you learn really quickly how long it takes and how hard it is. So I did have the original goal of being traditionally published. I think most people, when they start out writing, they think you hear all of these incredible stories about people who wrote their first book and they got a big book deal and they became this best-selling debut author. And that stuff does happen, but it's definitely not the norm. So what happens more often is that you have this manuscript, you're submitting it to either publishers who do not require agent representation, or you're submitting it to agents, because a lot of publishers, especially the bigger ones, they do require representation. So it could take 6 months to a year for an agent to get back to you on your manuscript. Some agents may not get back to you ever. And so when you're waiting that long, sometimes up to a year, just to receive rejections or to never receive an email back at all, that can be a really discouraging process, a disappointing process. And what I tell people about it is that a lot of times it doesn't really even have to do with you or your work or the quality of writing. You are aiming at an extremely small bullseye and trying to essentially read the mind of the person you're submitting to. So I've had some feedback where it's like, this is up my alley, this is in my wheelhouse, but the first 10 pages didn't grab me like they needed to for me to move forward. So yeah, I mean, throughout that process, I decided I knew what I wrote wasn't incredibly indicative of the things that were getting purchased at the time, because I wrote a young adult horror fantasy novel, and I wrote it sort of as a direct response to the things that were getting published in the space at the time. So yeah, I decided to make some moves and publish it myself.
Awesome, and that's a great segue, because when we come back, we're going to talk to Joey about his next steps and how he published his book. Stick around.